In celebration of Juneteenth weekend, join us for the 4th Annual Black Ink Book Festival and Black Ink Short Film premiere in New Orleans, Louisiana on Saturday, June 20th, 2026 at City Park's Pavilion of the Two Sisters from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meet new authors in all genres, enjoy speakers, live readings in the Botanical Gardens, and win prizes. Registration is now open. Author exhibit booths and sponsorship opportunities are available. To learn more, visit www.blackwritersworkspace.com/BLK Ink Book Festival. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson. I am here for our final session with our winners from the Chapter 1 writing competition. A lot of people may say, what is the Chapter 1 writing competition? It is a competition that we started several years ago. I think this is our 5th year. And our goal is to recognize our writers of African descent, our self-published and unpublished writers from across the globe. And so we have some dynamic people who come in and they submit in our fiction, nonfiction, or poetry categories. And for poetry, they have to submit 5 to 7 poems. For nonfiction and fiction, they are required to submit up to 10 pages. And we have an amazing group of judges who will take their time over the summer and review each and every one of those submissions and provide numerical scores as well as feedback. So today we have our first place winner in the fiction category. And what I love about this is that fiction is our toughest category. We always have more submissions in fiction in any of the different categories. And we have tonight with us the winner of that category, Catalina Devent, and she is here from New York to talk to us about her submission. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Michelle?
I'm good. It's so nice to have you here to see you. I am excited because last year you won honorable mention in this competition. And I think you were also being recruited to some degree by our sponsor, Village Care Publishing. And so it's just so excited to have you here. And you won with a different submission last year, which is now a book.
Yes.
So when we talk about what Chapter 1 is all about, this is it, right? It is about finding those gems in our community that are writing and putting their hearts and their minds and their passions on the paper and being able to publish them and to gain a great fan base, because most of us are independent authors and it's hard, it's difficult when you're independent. And so it's so good to see you back, which tells me that you are a dynamic writer to win 2 years in a row. And I'm just so happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your submission.
Well, thank you so much. A little bit about myself. So I always felt like I was a writer at heart. I've always been writing. Even before I realized that I love writing, I was writing. And last year, as you mentioned, I wrote a book about a young woman who suffers with depression, and I self-published it. I've been trying my best to promote it, but I started thinking about a different type of book, a different type of story to write. And when I saw that you were doing the competition again, I was like, oh, I have to do this. And you don't know, I was hoping, like, I was just so excited for it. And I kind of felt like I had a chance to win. And I did. And so this submission was something very different from my first novel. This submission is about a pair of twins, Haitian American twins, who are identical, and they are on a quest to learn more about their culture, their identities, while dealing with a mysterious illness from their mother and their father who has disappeared. So that's my submission for this year.
And give us the name of your submission again.
It was called at the time Finelli and Amélie. And I've decided to change it to a different working title called Marked by Spirits. I don't know if it's going to work, but yeah.
Let's talk about this. I mean, we have writers out here. You're part of the Black Writers Workspace. That's the organization. I mean, that's something that I founded back in 2020. I wanted to make sure that our writers of color had an opportunity to connect with each other, to learn how to write and publish our books. And when we are writing these books, I mean, so much of ourselves go into the process. Talk to me about these two characters and what really inspired you to create these characters and to build upon them. And now you've changed the name, which I love that about writing. We can change the name before it's published. We can change the name. We can do whatever we want to do, is what we're feeling. So talk to us a little bit about your characters and what inspired them.
So my characters are twins, and I myself have a fraternal twin sister, and I'm sort of basing each of these characters very loosely on my sister and myself, but I'm taking them in a way that I really wanted to explore my culture as a Haitian American. And growing up, our first language was Haitian Creole, and when we went to school, we lost that language. I don't speak it as well as I would like to. I've lost. I feel like I've lost touch with my culture, and so I decided to write this story about these two young ladies, explore what it is to be a twin, explore what it is to be part of an identity that people don't quite understand, while also learning and learning more about my culture as a Haitian American woman. So I felt like that was so important for me to do. My first book was really all about depression and what I went through, and using that as a basis for my novel. And so each of these stories are really based on what's important to me. So that's what that's about.
Isn't that what we do? We write what we love. We write what's important to us. I don't think sometimes, even if you're writing about bears in a children's book, I mean, you're writing about that bear is probably going to have more qualities of either you or someone that you know. That's how we are developing these amazing characters. And so you write a book about depression, and did you find that it helped you therapeutically, and did it help the people around you? And then how did you morph that into, I mean, I'm always interested to know the second book. The second book becomes I know for me, my first book was fun and light because I wasn't trying to write a book. I was just telling a story on paper. I'll say it that way. But my second book became very intense for me because it meant more, because I didn't realize how many people in my life would read what I wrote and try to figure out, were they a part of that experience? And so did you find that after the first book that writing the second book, was it easier or was it harder for you?
It's definitely harder. So the first book, yes, as you asked me before, it was a very cathartic experience. I felt like I was taking all the feelings that I was going through with depression. I was just like taking it out on the page and just leaving it there. And I felt that was very cathartic. And with this one, I think it is a little bit more challenging, only in the sense that at this time I have to do my research. Remember, like I said, that I'm trying to get more in touch with my culture, with the Haitian culture, with the Haitian history, and I have to do a little bit more digging, a little bit more research, and it kind of intimidates me. And because it intimidates me, I think that's why I have to do it. You know what I mean? The story is in me, and I feel like I have to let it out. And so I'm doing my research. I got a mentor so that she can help me through this, and I'm really taking the second book seriously.
Well, first place in the fiction category. It is our most popular and our most competitive category. And we had some dynamic pieces this year. So to see that, when I saw you, I don't judge, but I'm in the back and I'm managing all the platforms and everything. And so when I saw that your submission was number one, I was like, yes, she is doing it. She's coming back, and she's coming back for more. And I love that. So that is so great. Let's talk about being a Haitian American. I have a friend who's Haitian. He's an author, a professor down in Florida, and he writes about his experience coming to the country. He talks about at 17, being on a boat and, arriving in Miami, not speaking any English and having to create a life for himself, a new life. He did have a sister here, but he left his mother and his father. And he talks about how difficult it was, but how he's been able to use it as a foundation to do such great work, not just as an author, but also as an educator. Talk to us about those differences of being Haitian and your experiences in a Haitian household versus how we live, because I'm always interested in those dynamics. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, that's so interesting because all while growing up, we always understood that we were different from, I guess, the other African American students, or I'm not students, people, or Black American Black, right, and Black Americans, I should say, and we always felt. I always noticed that my parents, especially my mother, carried herself with so much pride. We were not like them. We come from Haiti. We know how to respect each other. We know how to respect others, and I always felt this sense of pride for being Haitian. And it's funny, while I felt this sense of pride, I also felt a little bit like I wasn't embracing. I wasn't embracing my Haitianness enough, right? So I felt like I wasn't always like like everywhere I went, I always knew that I was different because of where my family comes from, what I know. I know I speak Haitian Creole, not very well, unfortunately, but I understand it, and I get that we come from this rich history, this rich a group of people who were able to free themselves from slavery. But I always felt that pride, but at the same time, I always felt like I need to do more. I need to feel more. I need to uh, be more of my Haitian, about my Haitian people. And so I feel like growing up and seeing how my parents worked so hard, I definitely, I don't know, I definitely look at them with so much pride because they were able to do what they did. And you speaking about your friend who came here without any English, and my parents came here, they were already adults, and they had to come here, learn a new language, and work hard, and put their kids through school. And I find that to be so admirable.
I think it's so admirable how our like first generation, second generation immigrants come to this country with such a thirst for knowledge and
Mhm.
a thirst to live. I guess what what you would call the American dream, and I see this a lot. I interviewed a writer 2 weeks ago who's from West Africa, and he talks about getting up at 5 in the morning and having to trudge down a very steep hill to get water because water was only available so many hours out of the day, and bringing that water back to his family at he did this from the age of 7 until leaving for, America at probably 22 or 19, 18 years old. And then having to do that every morning and then go to school. And
Mm,
he talks about coming to this country and just being just hungry to excel. And
mhm,
so I have so much pride, and I love the pride that you have because I see that pride in everybody that I know who's not from the US, in my opinion. He's like, I love that pride that you have. I think we have it, but it's shown in a different way. And so
mhm.
that's excellent. And I know that your work expresses that. So talk to us about your day job. I mean, what do you do, or tell us what you do and how it translates to the work that you're putting out.
So I'm a teacher. I teach English language arts to seventh and ninth graders in a public school. And I don't know. I feel like, well, last year, oh, okay. Last year, I had a creative writing club, after school club for my students. And I really, really wanted to enforce in them like how special it is to be a writer, to want to write, to be able to express yourself with words. And I created this club, and I applied for a grant that I received, that we were able to actually publish a book. And I was so proud of my students. They wrote these short stories, and they wanted to think about, in terms, they wanted to think horror stories, mysteries. And I was like, can't we write like nice, fluffy stories? But no, that's what they wanted. And so we called our book Masquerade of Lies. That's the title they came up with. And they come up with some really interesting stories, really dynamic. They were creepy, they were cute, and we were able to publish it. And we had a publishing party, a release party that we invited the entire school to. And I wanted to show them that this is how you do it. You know, you write something, you want to be able to do it, and it gets done, you know. And I thought it was very, very exciting for them, and they were proud. They read excerpts from their work, and I was so glad that I was able to do that for them, to help them realize their vision and for them to see their name in a book. I was just so happy that I was able to do that for them.
You just became my favorite teacher. Okay. You just became my favorite teacher. I love that. I absolutely love that. Congratulations, and congratulations to your students.
Thank you.
Man, I would have loved that as a young girl. Like to have
Same.
that opportunity to have my name in a book. I remember for myself, I grew up in a small town in Fairfield, Alabama, called Fairfield, and I grew up across the street from an HBCU. So I lived in the project, so you can walk 100 steps and you were on the campus of a historically Black college, and that did a lot for me growing up, because my whole life I saw people going to college. So as much as people may think, having Black colleges and Black neighborhoods is a negative, for the kids in those communities to see people go to college, get degrees, become Greek, all these different things. My whole life, that's all I saw. But I remember wanting to be a writer, and there wasn't anyone, that I knew of. My brother knew one professor who had written a book, and he would take me to her house so I can look at her book, just look at it and feel it and know someone who was an author. And so what you're doing is such a game changer for these kids' lives. That seeing that one author young in my life it convinced me that I could do this. Although I didn't publish until I was 35, but I still always wanted to be an author. So congratulations. I love that. That is so amazing. I know how it is. You've got 7th, 8th graders, just to get them to sit down and do something like this. Amazing. And they're so creative at their age.
Yeah, they really are.
They have a
Yeah,
lot
and you don't want to block that creativity. So I was like, just give me what you got and we can work with it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. For those out there, if you want to drop a question, please do so. We are here. If you are a writer and you have questions about a submission, please drop those questions. We just want to hear from you. If you are a reader and you just want to know more about the work, then please do so. Drop your questions. That will be excellent. So talk to us. Let's go back to this submission and finding out that you won this first place prize. I had someone yesterday tell me how they were looking, because I go live and I kind of announce the winners, and she was so convinced she wasn't even on the list, and she ended up being the first place winner in one of the categories. And she was like, wait a minute, that must be wrong. How did you feel when you saw your name show up as the first place winner?
So I saw all these names, right? And then I saw, I think my name was listed last as the first place winner. So when I saw all the other names, I was just like, I didn't win. I was like, oh well. And then my sister, who was sitting next to me, was doing her own thing. And then that's when I saw my name come up as the first place winner. I went like this. And she was like, what? Tell me what? And I was like, I won! I'm first place! I was so excited. I was like, I can't believe it, but it makes sense, but I can't believe it. I was so excited, Michelle. I was so excited.
That's what I want. I really love this competition. Started because I wanted to make sure that our independent authors, our self-published and unpublished writers had an opportunity to get their work out there. It's harder for us, it's really tough for us. And so trying to build a fan base and understanding the steps to do this is so key. And I think I mentioned to you that one of the winners from the prior years have just published his book, and he won first place in the fiction category. And now he just published his first book within like the last 2 weeks. And I'm just so proud to be able to say the very story that he submitted is now a book. And so that's our goal. So thank you so much. That is so excellent. And I'm glad you had that experience to just go, oh my God, I won. Absolutely. That is a great thing. So we have a couple of people here who, that sounds so wonderful, Kathy. Are these friends of yours? You know them?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Shanti. Yes. I just met Shanti actually in a writing group.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice. And we have a beautiful gift a beautiful gift for those children. I would love to know where we can even find the book that you published for your students. I think that would be excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
See that. Yeah, let us know how we can get a hold of it. So we have a lot of things going on with the Chapter 1 writing competition. You are first place winner, so you have this opportunity to have people to meet you. Yeah, absolutely, first place, and there's a cash prize. I love that. So that's excellent. And then there are opportunities for you to promote your work with Direct to Author, which is a platform that we created to help promote our independent authors. We're also going to be contacting you throughout the year to just, know about different things that we've got going on, including our book fair here in New Orleans. But you're going to be representing a big category when it comes to fiction. Let's just very quickly talk a little bit about what it's about to write fiction, because fiction is tough. You have to organize the thoughts. You have to build characters that people can believe in. You have to world build as well, like where the story will take place. So what is the hardest part of writing fiction for you, and what part of it you love the most?
I love the most just being able to, when I reread my work, and sometimes I still look at my book and I still can't believe that it came from me. So when I read the words, I just love when these ideas are like downloaded into me, and the words just spill out of me. I still find it so fascinating that I'm able to come up with these words. So that's what I love most about fiction, being able to create a story out of just my imagination and have people comment on it, read it, that's my favorite part of writing. The hardest part is actually getting into the nitty-gritty of it. I have a basic idea of what I want to do, but now getting into all the details, and I write a scene, and I think it's like the best scene, and I have my beta readers read it, or my critique group, and they're like, well, this, you didn't do this, and this, I don't understand this, and I don't understand that, and I'm just like, oh, and I have to go back to it. But I have to admit, I really like the revision process, because after I've revised my work, it's just so much better. And I'm just like, wow, I did it again. I don't know. It's just this wonderful feeling that I get. It's just so cathartic. I just feel like I'm so lucky to be able to write, to be able to do this, and knowing that I love it. I just feel lucky about it. So the hardest part is getting to the details, but I love getting to the details.
Yes, I'm a fiction writer as well. There is something about building the characters that I love. I fall in love with the characters. And I really fall in love with the characters. And then they begin to speak to me. They begin to tell me what they will and will not do, what they will and will not wear. I wouldn't say that. And so while you're writing, you're hearing them or you're seeing them. It's we're special people. I'll say that. I don't think people can understand what it's like to be a writer and to have, the gift to create these individual people and individual circumstances, and to be able to control that narrative and make it what you want it to be. It is beautiful to go back. I love rereading my work. Yes. I've now started to do the read out loud and just let the computer read it to me, just so I can hear it, because I haven't done my books in audio yet. I'm working on that as well. But the storytelling is so divine, and it's so great when you have people who understand, or who really care about the work itself, and they try to understand where the characters come from. I remember my first book club event. Walk in, my heart is because it's a room full of women
Yeah.
who, it's like 30 of them, and they all have my book in their hand.
Oh,
And
wow.
there was that one lady who had all these um, little sticky notes through
Oh,
the book. So of course, she's mean mugging me. Like she's looking at me like
oh,
I hate this book. And then they got to, okay, everybody, what are your ideas? And she starts just unfolding my story for me.
mm,
And I just welled up and cried. I couldn't
mm,
believe that someone understood it that deeply, which meant
mm,
that I was able to convey what I wanted to convey
mhm.
in writing. So I know that feeling. And congratulations again on everything that you're doing.
Thank
For
you.
those out there, if you have any questions for the teacher, let's hear about her. Come on, put those out here. This is her second year with the Chapter One writing competition. What's the future for this work? Are you planning to publish?
Yes, so I am working on it. I still have the bare bones of it. I do want to finish it. I'm putting it out there that I'm going to finish at least the first draft by June of next year, and I'm going to. I plan on publishing it, whatever it takes. Beta readers, editors, whatever it takes. I'm going to publish it. I really believe that it's a story that I need to tell. It's been with me for a very long time, and I'm finally starting to put it on paper. So I believe in
What does your sister say?
it. Oh,
How does your sister say about the book?
she's actually she's online right now. She's CFIT coaching. She wrote a beautiful book for those children. My sister is on board for it. She is like maybe my number two fan. Shonda is my number one fan. Shonda, if you're out there listening, you know who you are. Thank you. But I'm just kidding. But my sister, it has my back. She's always there to listen to everything that I do. She's so proud of me, and I just yeah. So my sister's my hero.
That is so great. That is so great. Well, thank you so much. If you want to leave if anybody else have any questions, let's take those questions now. But I would love for you to wrap up by giving some words of encouragement
Mhm.
to our writers out there, because that's what we're trying to do with the Chapter One writing competition, is to make sure that we are keeping our writers motivated.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
It's not always easy because we have great stories, but it's hard. There are barriers for us to get those stories out there.
Mhm.
Some of those barriers many of us have been able to overcome, and some of them we have not been able to overcome. But the
Mhm.
great thing is technology allows us to do things like self-publish. And so
Yeah.
really excited to be able to put the work out. When I published my first book in 2010, self-publishing was like a black eye. I mean, I didn't even try to get a traditional publisher. I didn't even try to get one, but I didn't realize that there were so many people who still felt like if you were self-published, the work couldn't be any good.
Mhm.
And then when I started the Black Writers Workspace and I started reading everyone's work, I realized that there is just so much there are so many dynamic self-published books
Mhm.
out there. It's not what I thought it was.
Mhm.
And so I was really excited to be able to explore self-publishing more. And I'm a big advocate for it. Not that I'm against getting a traditional deal. No,
Mhm.
get your money,
Mhm.
absolutely. Because self-publishing is self. Is you do everything. And it
Yeah.
really is, it can get tough. But I'm happy we have that opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
You have a question. I know it's your sister, but we definitely want to hear this question. What's most challenging about the research process? Great question.
um, I think it's just knowing where to look, knowing where to find the information. And I was doing a lot of thinking about that today, and I probably need to go to the libraries. I mean, I know that we have the internet these days. It's easier to do research with the internet, but I probably have to actually visit some spaces like the Schomburg Center, because the work that I'm doing, it involves the history of Haiti, and I'm not going to be able to find that so easily just anywhere. So I think the toughest part, the challenging part about the research process is knowing where to find the information.
Yeah, that's a very good response. I've got some questions that's coming in from some of the other authors. I'm going to see if I can get them in the comments. This is one, I didn't want to miss it. It's going to show up under my name, guys, but this is from Gregory, who we're going to be interviewing shortly. So let me put that up so you can take a look. He says, "Were there real life people who inspired your characters?" I think you did respond to that already. And then, did your research involve live interviews? That's a great question.
Oh, great question. For my first novel, the real life people who inspired my characters, first of all, was me, because I suffered with depression, and I used everything that I went through in order to give it to my main character. And there were parts of like ex-boyfriends that were in the male narcissistic kind of character in my novel. So that was that. And with my current novel that I'm working on, my sister and I are the inspiration for my two characters. They're not, I'm not going to say that they are us, but I took off from, you know, what my sister and I are, and I built upon that. And my mom, I have to say, my both my parents inspired my new work as well, the one that I submitted to the contest. My parents.
Excellent, excellent. We have another question here from Christopher, and he said, "Do you select a theme in advance, or does it develop after you progress through your story?"
I selected the theme in advance, and also other themes come into play as I progress through my story. And it's so interesting how it works, because once you're writing the story, then you start noticing all these different themes. You're like, oh my gosh, wow, I didn't even realize that was there. I think that's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. So my novel at first, my first novel was supposed to be about a woman who's going through depression, but then I noticed there were family themes in there, relationship themes, you know, theme about self-love, you know, and all of that comes into play. And so I feel like when it comes to these different themes, when they appear and make themselves seen, it's your job now to foster it, to let that grow. I love that.
And that is so true. I have a writers meetup group here, and one of the things that I always challenge writers with is coming up with a theme, and a one sentence theme, almost like
Mm.
an elevator pitch. If
Mhm.
you had to tell me about your book in one sentence, what would you say? And it's interesting because my first book, The Heart of a Man, when I wrote it, every time someone would ask me about the book, I would go into this long litany of trying to explain every character because you're so close to the work.
Yes.
You're trying to explain everything, and it just sounded like probably noise. And
Hmm.
then a friend of mine read my book, and she said, "Oh my God, it's such a great book." And she said, "I love that you're talking about money can't buy you love." And I was like, that's it. Money can't buy you love. That's the theme of the book that I
Yeah.
could not seem to get to because I was so close to it.
Yeah.
And so I love the question about theme and understanding the progression of it. And what you said, you find so many things in your book, themes in your book. And but as writers, you know, it's always good to know how to how to um, how to sum that up for
Hmm.
your readers,
Yeah.
especially when you're out at book fairs and different things like that. When someone
Yeah.
says, "What's your theme?" and you're like, "Well, this character did this and this character," because that was
Yeah.
how I did it. So that's a great question, though. I love that. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Gregory, and everyone who asked questions. So I would love for you to wrap up by giving a few words of encouragement
Sure.
to our writers out there.
So I have two things that I want to say. One is that if you've been given this drive to tell a story, then then do it. You've been given your talent for a reason, and it's your responsibility to share it with the world, I feel. And two, I enter those contests, enter and mentorship programs, enter anything and everything that you could get your hands on, because not only, even if it doesn't really go anywhere, it will boost your morale, it'll boost your uh your confidence in yourself as a writer. And I think that goes such a long way, and that's what I've always done. I've always tried to join as many groups as I can, and enter as many contests as I can, and I feel that it really helps to boost my confidence as a writer.
Absolutely. And in the chapter one writing competition, you don't just get your numerical scores, but you also get your feedback. Was there something that you heard from the judges that really helped you?
Oh my gosh, yes. I can't remember it now though, but yes, when I read it all to my sister and I was like, listen to what they said about my work, and it made me feel so good. And it just it's just you had said it yesterday with your interview with I forget what her name was, the poetry prize winner.
Mhm.
You said that it really helps when other people have validated your work. We don't need others to validate our work, but when it happens, that's a really great
Mhm.
lift for our spirit, right? But I remember when I read all the feedback, it just made me feel like I was doing the right thing. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and yeah.
And you are.
Yeah.
If I can validate it, you are doing exactly what you should be doing. You are
Thank you.
educating our youth and getting them to be focused on literature and literacy, which is so important. And then you're giving them an opportunity to see their name on a
Yeah.
book. That's a game changer. And
Yeah.
then you are putting out great works of art. You're not hiding, you're not saying, well, I'm going to hide this and never, no one ever see it. And I'm talking to
Yeah.
those introverted writers out there who won't get in the competitions, who won't stand up and speak, who won't do the spoken word. Go for it. Go for it. The world needs to hear your voice. They need to hear your story. And what other way are we going to control the narrative around what happens in the African American or just the Black community as a whole? What happens in the global community if we don't tell the story? We
Yeah.
have to continue to tell these stories. So congratulations on everything. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for submitting. And I will hopefully be talking with you soon. And maybe, hopefully, once that book is done, you can come down here to New Orleans and show it off at our book fair and on the direct to author page. That would be great. And again, thank you so much for being with us. And we're going to be taking a short 1 minute break, and then we're going to go into our next group of interviews, which is our second and third place winners for the fiction category, which is so cool. They're actually the two people who were runners up to you. Um, and that is so dynamic. Two male writers. And I have to say that because I love our male writers. And so I'm just grateful to see them. And they're going to be here to talk about their works in just a few minutes. But thank you so much. We're going to take you off the screen. Thank you, Shanti, and to your sister. Thank you, sister, for letting her write the book about the two of you, or inspired by the two of you. So that's excellent. So you take care, okay?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. So, everybody, we are once again getting ready for another interview. We've got two dynamic writers who's going to be with us today. We've got Gregory Newton with his book, This Holiday Ground, and Christopher Dole, The Men from Macon. So, they're going to be with us shortly. But I just wanted to once again let everyone know Chapter 1 writing competition. We open up the submission period typically around March of each year, and we accept applications until May. And then our judges, our beta readers, and our editors will review over the summer. So they spend their whole summer reviewing 60 or 70 submissions. And then in August, we will announce the winners. And then we start giving our winners an opportunity to meet potential fans, and that's you. And that's why it's important. So remember these names and faces. And we're going to be putting up some of these submissions on the Black Writers Workspace page so that people can get an opportunity to read them. That's from those writers who are comfortable with that. So we're going to be doing that as well. So, but for now, we're going to bring up our next two amazing writers who are going to talk to us about their fiction category submissions. And we have Christopher Dole, who is in Hawaii, where I need to be, and Gregory, who's in Houston, where I will be in a couple of days. So that's a nice thing. Thank you so much, guys. How's everything going?
Well, fine.
Good. I'm so excited to have you both here, and we're going to talk about your work. But I first want to congratulate you on winning second and third place in the fiction category. It was, like I said, one of our toughest categories. We had well over 40 submissions, and as you can imagine, 40 submissions, 10 pages each, lots of reading to do. And you two came in second and third place, which is awesome. Gregory, you were in second place with The Holiday Ground, and Christopher, you're in third place with The Men from Macon. So, for those out there, if you can hear us, please first subscribe to YouTube. Also, share this on your page and drop your questions. Please drop your questions. So, let's start with you, Gregory. Talk to us about this holiday ground. Tell us about yourself and then tell us about your submission.
All right. Well, thank you, Michelle, for having me, and it's really an honor just to have placed second prize on this. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a native Texan, though I've lived in several states, mostly California, for several years. I moved back to Texas a few years back. I love to write. I used to try my hand at some screenplays, and I may still have something in the works there. I'm also a Marine Corps veteran. But on the writing front, I've dedicated my writing focus on telling stories from the historical narrative of African Americans in Texas, who have a rich, long history that I found has just often been ignored or diminished in historical records. And so this novel, This Holiday Ground, it's inspired by my own family history. It's told from two points of view, a mother and a daughter. It is set during World War II, though it is not a war story. This is a story of faith, survival, and fortitude during the Jim Crow era, as three generations of women struggle in a fight for survival on land that has been a part of their heritage since Reconstruction, land that was hard fought and won. And while the men are away at war, the women on this ranch become targeted. To take a line from the book that I think kind of summarizes the theme, this is a family that has always had to fight for the right to thrive. They're also a family that's descended from what was known as the Alta Vista Plantation, which became Prairie View A&M University, the largest HBCU in the state. And so it's there's a lot of dynamics going on with this story, but it is historical fiction. There's a lot of fact in there as well. And so I really love the story. I'm very close to it, but I'm glad that it's resonated with the judges for this competition.
And I'm glad to have you. This is amazing. So the two of you are both retired military, correct?
Well, I didn't retire. I did 4 years.
Okay. So you're a veteran, and
Yes.
my husband is a veteran as well, a retired military officer. I was 19 years as a military wife, and I know that from watching him go through war college and different steps in the military, the structure that you can sometimes have in understanding how to brief, how to do things like that. So the being very orderly. And so where I'm going with this is you're telling historical fiction. Did your military background or just your past experiences as a layman working, did that influence your interest in historical fiction, or was it your family's history that inspired it?
Well, I would have to say both, because you hit two nails on the head there. Military history is part of my family tradition. My father enlisted in the Air Force in 1952. He served 20 years, retired as a crew chief with the Strategic Air Command. So that military aviation background is there. I've got family members that served in World War II, World War I. And so as I did my research and I'm diving into my family history, I'm seeing stories of just tremendous accomplishments, war heroes, huge accomplishments in almost every branch of the service dating back. And I've got a sister who is our family genealogist. And I've caught that bug as well, diving into ancestry and going into that level of research and discovering family history that dates back to the 1840s. One of the things that really inspired me is I've always been a history buff, but as I travel to museums throughout this state of Texas, which has more African Americans than any other state in the country, and part of that is the size, but a lot of it is history. Museums and official records almost eliminated or just did not mention the contributions of African American, Latino, and indigenous cultures to the state. It felt as if one group sort of hijacked the narrative to present this sort of false yarn that other cultures, other groups were not worthy of mention or accolades or praise when it comes to that history, which is completely and totally false. And so I felt obligated at that point, not just to my own ancestors, but to my entire community, to try to put more out there to shed light on a history that I feel as if been, I mean, we've heard so many beautiful narratives, in New York and the antebellum South and the Eastern Seaboard, from Harriet Tubman to Frederick Douglass. But how many people know about the Underground Railroad to Mexico? If you were enslaved in Texas, very unlikely you're going to make it to Philadelphia or Canada. But in Mexico, where slavery was illegal, that was a pathway. And so there's so much there that inspired me to write this story. And like I said, a lot of it is my own family or just my community as a whole.
I love everything that you said. That is so powerful. I think that right now, in the midst of everything that's happening in this country, I'm in getting my doctorate, and I can tell you from doing my dissertation studies that a lot of data about diversity when it comes to the federal government is disappearing as quickly as, it's there yesterday, today it's not, it's that way. U.S. Census Bureau information, anything that has a slant towards diversity is literally, this is data that we need, it's disappearing. And so what we're doing with these books, what we're doing with this work is capturing this time period, you're looking at the history of Texas. But if we don't capture these things, if we don't do the historical fiction writing, if we don't do the fiction writing, if we don't do the nonfiction writing, we may miss a great opportunity. We may not have this data in 10 or 20 years. So controlling the narrative, telling these stories, keeping them going, you just said something I never heard of. I never heard of an underground railroad from Texas to Mexico. Never heard of that. So you just educated me on something that I'm like excited about learning more about it. So that is excellent. We're going to come back to you to learn a little bit more about the holiday ground, because I want to know what happens on this ground without any spoilers. So we're going to move to Christopher, who is our third place winner in the fiction category. His book, The Men from Macon. Talk to us about it. Tell us about yourself and tell us about your work.
Well, I'm a retired Air Force veteran, like I mentioned earlier. I'm born and raised in the great state of Georgia, and I did 23 years in the Air Force. And my story, The Men from Macon, is actually an excerpt from a novel I'm working on. And it's funny, I only submitted it, saw what happens to submit for the contest. I was more motivated to just support the whole endeavor. I just think it's a real cool thing to have a platform for authors to put their stuff out there. So no intention. I didn't think I could get anything. So when my name showed up, I was like, oh, for real? Oh, so, but it was more so just to support it, because I really think it's really cool what you're doing, having a site, a platform for authors. And so I was just supporting it that way. And it's just a random chapter. And because I'm working on 3 things, this is a random chapter in one of the things I'm working on. But it was still great learning. I've won them.
Well, I tell you what, you beat out a whole bunch of people. So I can tell you that it was more than just a submission. It was more than just a chapter. It was a well-written, well-organized chapter, because the interesting thing about chapter 1 is some people will submit chapter 1 of their books or what they're writing, and some people will submit their best chapter. But the strategy is in knowing what to submit, because if you submit something that the reviewers can't pick up on what's happening, you've got a problem from going forward. And so that's what happens a lot of times, is that there are some good writers who submit, but they submit a chapter that the reviewer can't quite understand because they can't put into context. So it's good that, what you selected was obviously a great selection. But also from what I'm reading from the reviewers, they really love the work. So tell us about the actual Men from Macon. What is the story about?
Well, it's part of a series I'm working on, and it's actually the second book. The first book takes place in Atlanta. The second one takes place in a little smaller town, and it's just guys kind of living a rough and tumble life, trying to hustle on the side, and these organized crime folks think that because they let this guy use their place to do a recruitment, that they're involved with it. They're not. But the younger of the brothers, younger of the protagonists, little Charles is thinking, well, this money went missing. They think we got it anyway. Maybe let's go ahead and get it. And so it's all the stuff that goes on behind that. But then mixed into all that, though, is kind of similar like what Greg was talking about, is showing like some of the historical, putting everything in a historical context, seeing how everything was so slanted against us. And because I myself always write historical fiction. So far, all my novels take place. One is a drama, and the other two are kind of like crime, kind of humorous type books. But I've always been fascinated by that dance that our ancestors had to do about, during that time frame because of the laws and Jim Crow, and how to pick and choose when you stood up, because if you stood up all the time, you wouldn't be standing long. So you had to pick and choose. And just that showing two faces of yourself, having to decide, is this a hill I want to literally die on, or what do I let this slide, and how the most mundane things became a big issue. Driving downtown, I had an uncle when I was growing up. He never went downtown. He was older, and they would say, "You gonna go downtown?" He said, "I ain't feel like dealing with white folks today." And he just been downtown, so we would just go and ask him, "Hey, do you want us to get anything?" Because he was not the type to deal with that. He was just not. He wasn't the one to deal with that and have to grin in someone's face when he didn't feel that way. So just how people were able to succeed in spite of all that has always fascinated me.
I love that. My father was born in 1933 in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama, and he's now deceased. He passed about 3 years ago, and I remember him saying that he would get pulled over because he drove a white Cadillac, and that Black people in Alabama, in the South, you couldn't drive white cars. There was just things that you could not do or you should not do. Otherwise, it was like a red flag. It's against the rules in a way, these Jim Crow laws and all these discriminatory acts of the South. But he would always talk to me about all the things he could not do or that people didn't do. Now, my dad was a rebel, so he would just do it anyway. But to hear him, and all I could think about is the fear that had to have been there, to know that I can walk out the door and get pulled over by a police officer, killed, and there's probably nothing is going to happen to anyone at this time. You're talking the 40s, the 50s, 60s, And so it really it really helped me to appreciate him and to appreciate what it is to be a Southerner as well. So let's talk a little bit, though, the two of you. You can open your mics, and let's talk about your writing process, because I'm always so interested. I'm always interviewing women primarily about writing, and so when I get a chance to interview men, I have to take it as a real blessing to kind of learn your side of what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. And so historical fiction is so great, and it sounds like you're writing a story that's more crime or thriller, and I love that as well. So but talk to us a little bit, starting with you, Gregory, about your writing process.
Wow. So I do have a full-time corporate job. So, and I've got little ones. So, my writing process is really whenever, however I can get to it. I will put a plug for an organization that I joined about 4 years ago called Story Summit. It was founded by David Kirkpatrick, who's a former studio exec of both Paramount and Walt Disney Studios. And through that writing community, I was able to join small groups, and I was able to get mentored by two best-selling authors. One, Sadiqa Johnson, who wrote Yellow Wife and House of Eve. Another mentor was Julie Cantrell, and they were really instrumental in helping me sort of hone the craft of writing, right? Really diving into that. And so with the small groups and the mentorships and, I think just the revisions, right? I love revisions, as we were talking about earlier. And so you're revising, and each time it just keeps better and keeps getting better and better. As one mentor said, be stingy with your words. And so being able to just, write this first draft, which is like this huge, monster, is there's an author, Victoria Christopher Murray, who just wrote Harlem Rhapsody. She said once, that first draft is like an ugly baby, right? Or just a messy baby that's born. And then afterwards, you got to clean that baby up, and you've got to, get him or her in a nice, wrapped swaddling cloth, and then present her to the world. And so that's what it's been like, literally, just cleaning up that baby, revising, editing. I'm glad to say that the novel is done. I try not to look at it, because if I do, I'm going to find something else that I want to go in and change. But yeah, it's been a 4-year journey getting to that final product, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment.
How do you switch your mind off from the corporate environment to writing? Or is writing a kind of the softer side of your mind in a way? Does it relax you? Because it'll do that for me. It's just very relaxing. So how do you make that switch? Because I know there's a lot of people out there. I hear this question all the time, like, how do I find the time to write? And, how do I turn off that 9 to 5 in order to write?
Yeah, a couple of glasses of wine don't hurt. But after, because I have a grinding 9 to 5, and sometimes it's more like a 8 to 8. And it can be difficult to switch that off, but the writing is therapeutic for me. It's a release. And, I have a little ritual where I will, before I start writing, I listen to, music that really centers me. I love Rihanna Giddens, I love Valerie June, some of those types of artists. And then I play this slideshow of photographs, historic photographs of my family and people that have been part of my research journey, from Prairie View or my family, or just old photos, right? Beautiful photos. And I play that slideshow, and it's almost like a time portal. And then at that point, I feel like that corporate job, that's a distant thing. Now I can dive into this world, do my characters justice, and write something that a lot of times I'll finish. I'm like, wow, where did that come from? And it's an amazing experience when that happens. So
it's a beautiful process to write. I love that. Christopher, talk to us. What's your process for writing?
Well, normally I'm writing throughout the day. I'm a contracting officer for the Army. So I get inspiration throughout the day. I like to listen like a lot of podcasts. I'll get an idea from a podcast, because a lot of work is very solitary. You do a lot of stuff yourself. And I'll just hear maybe someone say something, or I'll have a little notebook to the side, jotting down some dialogue. But for me, it always starts with character. I'm really a character-driven writer. I like getting into the characters. I like to reveal story and reveal character through dialogue. I'm real big on dialogue. And I like to be really immersed in it. I like to make sure that everyone sounds differently. And the challenge I'm having now, though, is since I'm writing something all my books take place in the Deep South. So it's a situation of how true to the region do I want to be as it pertains to how people are speaking. Like for instance, like it's for me, it's great to hear Michelle say my last name, to hear it pronounced properly, the way it's supposed to be pronounced down south, instead of having all these people up north telling me, "Oh, you mean Doyle?" I'm like, "No, I mean Doyle." Yeah, exactly right. So all joking aside, is one of those things. Well, how deep do I want to get? Because I'm from the Deep South. I'm from South Georgia, so I can get as deep as you want to get. But I don't know if the average non-Southern speaking reader will understand, and understand that when you're reading it, it's really easy to say, well, why they talk so different? I said, well, if you've ever been down south or any place, people from the same place talk differently. Like I may drop my G's on words, but Michelle may pronounce hers. And Gregory may hit those hard consonant sounds at the beginning of words where the rest of us have it solved. And you say, well, why are they talking so differently? I said, because people talk differently down south, like they do everywhere. But they really, well, Michelle, Greg, you probably also know this as well. When people are critiquing you, they're going through the fine-tooth comb, looking for anything. It looks like, well, this is true to the region. This is how it is. People speak differently. And so that's one of the things, but that's part of the fun. Like Gregory was mentioned, that's part of the fun is getting immersed into it, losing yourself. I mean, because I'll start writing in 3-4 hours have gone by. My wife's like, "Hey, baby, it's time to go to bed." It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, "Oh man, I've just lost where I was." So, but for me, it's character, first, last, always character, and then deciding how deep you want to get with how you're going to write. Like non-writers can't really understand this, but do I want to say this in 5 pages or do I want to say this in 25 pages?
Exactly.
I
There's
can
a
do
lot
it like that,
yeah.
but do I want to do it like that?
A lot of decisions that you have to make when you're writing, especially fiction. Lots of decisions. You've got to build your characters, build your world. That's one thing. But what's important? What quality about the character do I want to elaborate on? I can remember reading a book by Terry Macmillan years ago, and she spent a chapter talking about a girl getting her hair braided. And I remember just feeling like, oh, this is too much. But after reading the entire book and understanding what getting the hair braided meant to this person at this period of their life, I understood. So as we develop these stories, we're our minds are like organizing in real time and trying to understand what's important with the characters, what happens here, what happens next. It's something you can't even explain to someone who doesn't write. Like I don't like explaining the process to anybody who doesn't write, because it is very, very it's complex, but it's beautiful. And you look back and read your own work, you feel like I know for me, I look back at my work and I go, my gosh, what's in my brain? Like what has created this? So that's great. So people out there, if you have any questions for these dynamic writers, please drop your questions. We've got a comment here from Monica who's saying this is a beautiful process. I love that. And because it is beautiful. We've got 2 writers who've won in the Chapter 1 writing competition. They submitted their work. They were selected by the judges. They received their numerical scores as well as feedback. Let's talk a little bit about, if you can recall, and I don't have in front of me, what did the judges have to say that helped you or that kind of left you a little questioning why they said it? Was there anything there? Greggy, you want to start?
Yeah, I thank you. I really, the feedback was very valuable for me. It really, it was inspirational. It helped motivate me, and it feels different when it's coming from someone that's on a judge's panel. But some of the specific things that they said was that they really felt immersed in the characters and in the history. That it was very clear that the historical details did not get in the way of the story, that they were just sort of intertwined in a way that told the narrative from the character's point of view, where you really understood the world that they were in, which is perfect for me because it's set in 1944, Jim Crow, Texas, outside of a small town. And for people in my family who lived in Corsicana, Texas during that period of time, you can't escape Jim Crow. You can't. It's ingrained in everything that you do and everywhere that you go. And it's not necessarily that it was something that stifled or prevented them from experiencing joy and full lives, but they had to walk, step by step with that. And there were these railroad tracks that literally were sort of a symbolic and a tangible boundary that separated the white from the black town of Corsicana. And when you cross those tracks, you're in a different world. And so I really appreciated that the judges, got that, they understood it, and that the history, like I said, that's the whole point. It's character driven, but you can't escape the historical world that they lived in.
Tell me something, Gregory. What did you learn in your research and writing that really changed you?
Wow. I would say the thing that really changed or inspired me when I was really diving into the archives of, say, like Prairie View A&M, and just seeing the struggles that that university has had to endure, over the last 150 years, and how they've triumphed over that, and how that school was a hub for the entire state of Texas for the African American community. Black high schools, this is where their championships were. Teachers conferences, and the individuals who were there really encapsulated that HBCU experience of, we are family and we are here to provide you with a safe haven. And when I was reading about, all the research that they had done, the accomplishments they had made, the sacrifices they had made in World War I in Korea, and then even in Vietnam. And then when I would go to museums and I wouldn't even see a footnote about them, it ticked me off, and it motivated me, and it inspired me, because when I see these textbooks and these exhibits and they're not even mentioning that history, it's like a slap in the face to my ancestors, saying that you don't matter. And my way of pushing back on that, like you say, a lot of the anti-DEI efforts, is to write. This is what I can do, to say they did matter, and I'm going to make sure that those voices are heard, and I can, write a novel narrative while at the same time educating people.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you're doing that. That was such a great answer. I know we're all learning things as we write. We learn about ourselves, we learn about our community. And so I love what you're saying about the HBCU. Like I said, I grew up across the street from an HBCU. I was on that campus more than anything. And, now I am getting my PhD at Southern University. And so I didn't attend an HBCU for college. And so this is my first real experience there. And I'm so excited. My husband is very excited. So he went to University. He went to Alabama A&M. So everybody around me pretty much went to an HBCU. I did not. And now I'm at Southern University, and I feel that family. I feel what everyone has told me all these years I would feel if I went to an HBCU. I get it. I get the way the professors make me feel, the way they talk to me, the way they're explaining the information, and the fact that we can talk about things in this classroom that I couldn't talk about at the University of Alabama, which is where I got my undergrad from. And so that really is profound. So Christopher, let's talk to you now. What did the judges say anything that was helpful to you? And I wanted you to take the same question. How did what you write change you? What did you learn about yourself?
Well, actually, it was the judges from last year that they kind of validated. I submitted something, once again, another chapter from my book, and they kind of validated the issues I mentioned earlier about being unsure about the dialogue and stuff like that. And they really validated, okay, no, this is translating. Now, this year, and as a matter of fact, when I submitted it, I just made sure I followed the instructions that they gave me last year. I just made a double check to make sure I did some things. And apparently apparently it was correct. And this year, what they did was a couple of them, they just validated stuff. And then one person said, well, maybe you don't want to tip your hand too soon about this particular little bit of information about one of the characters' motivations for doing something. And in the book, that's already been talked about, so it's not much of a tip to the hand. But I could see what they were saying by saying that. But I just appreciate the fact that they were specific in any correction or recommendation. Nothing was vague. There was no, hey, you need to do more of this. It was always very precise. You need to. I don't think you should have told this. Perhaps you want to do this. Everything was really, really guided you more like kind of like editorial advice. To just guide you to where maybe this would make the writing stronger. And so, and I'm just listening to Gregory talk, nodding my head about when it comes to the research, and you read these fantastic things people have done in the past, and they'll realize, hey, you know what? I'm so impressed with this because I've never read it before. Why have I never read this before? And it's like him talking about the Underground Railroad to Mexico. I'm someone who's into the history. I never heard of that before. I assumed that was someplace they went, but I never once read anything that told me about it. So yeah, I just really have always just really been interested in better ways to say what I want to say, and just be in the Air Force. they have 3 tenets of writing: is accuracy, brevity, and clarity. I never thought that would actually help me in anything outside the Air Force. But then I know one time I had a paragraph. Actually, I wrote something in 2 paragraphs. I need to shrink it down to fit into 1. And I was able to do it pretty easily because I knew exactly what to cut out. And so those skills do translate. And actually, after I rewrote it, it was actually better than the first one that kind of rambled a bit. So it was actually better. So the advice they gave and the notations I found very, very helpful for future writing, because I normally, when I hear something, I just employ it going forward. And so far, I've yet to get any critique that's been informative that hasn't been correct. Every critique I've ever received has been correct, because they're reading it. If they can't understand it, it's my fault, not theirs. And I think I've yet to have someone in any capacity give me some critique that didn't help me, that I couldn't go right to what they says. Hey, you know what? He's right. I don't understand this. I need to make this clearer. So that's the thing I appreciated the most about how specific they were with their suggestions.
Well, I tell you, we have judges that are very diverse. Okay. I don't like to give away my judges simply because they review so many submissions. I don't want people to go to them to know who they are and to start contacting them. But they are really open to me sharing who they are. But I can tell you this. This is a diverse group. It's not all African-American reviewers. They're not from one particular area, and they're not always the same. So the fact that last year you got comments that translated to this year shows that they're very consistent in in what they think is the best way to improve upon your work. So I'm really happy about that. We have about 10 reviewers. They're beta readers and professional editors, and they really take time out to get to know these pieces. And then we meet as a group and they get to share with me what they've learned about the work. And so I don't read the work, not all of it. I read some of it, not all of it. And it's really helpful to have that kind of diversity in a group like this. I have a question here, though, from Catalina. Let's see. I'm going to put it. You guys are dropping questions in the private chat. So I'm going to put it on here so that we can get it up on the screen for you. This is from Catalina, who we just interviewed. She said, when did you both know that you had the talent and the need to write? Good, very good question.
I'll go first. If it's, for me, it goes back to a teacher that I had in, 6th grade. And I grew up in this community where my 6th grade teacher, middle school, was also my Sunday school teacher, was also a family friend. And she just started recognizing my ability to write. And I used to write these short stories, and she was so encouraging along those lines. And she would read them, and she would even share them with the class. And she would encourage me to say, never stop writing. And that kind of propelled me to just, and so my whole life I've always loved to write. Unfortunately, I never really tried to pursue it outside of anything other than just a hobby or an outlet artistically. But that's where it began.
Teachers once again, they are so powerful. Same thing for me. I had a teacher in the 9th grade. She heard me reciting some poetry. She recorded it. And then she said, I found out about this journalism program at the University of Alabama. My family couldn't afford to send me. She filled out the paperwork for me. She paid the fee.
Wow.
And she sent me, and I was 15. And I spent 2 weeks at the University of Alabama in a minority journalism workshop. And I ended up attending the school, and it changed my life. And I will always give her credit for that, because that's powerful to know that someone saw something in you and didn't let it go. I always wanted to write, but the fact that she made that step for me, it just changed my life. So I love that. Christopher, what about you? When did you know you had this talent?
Probably in the 4th grade. Back in the day, you used to have to do book reports. You would read a book, had to do a handwritten book report, and then you would stand in front of the class and read it. And I remember, and I'm from my hometown, I'm part of the first group of kids who went through totally integrated from kindergarten to high school graduation. So I remember I did a book report, and Miss Fulford, Miss Sudie Fulford, she, after I was done, she looked at me and she was like, while the class was there, and I've never had a look of just unfiltered admiration before like that from a teacher. She said, "You just have such a way with words. Yeah, you just have," and that never left me. I always remembered that. And after that, I was always complimented on my writing, all types of writing, even in the military. I would critique stuff, rewrite stuff. And one of my commanders told me at my in briefing with him, because I was coming into the office and the secretary said, "Hey, read this, tell me what you think." And I got it, and I was like, "Can I write on this?" So I was editing it. And afterwards, we had to cancel the meeting. Then later on that day, he saw me. He said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I saw that letter." He said, "You're going to find out something. Your ability to communicate effectively, either written and speaking, is going to be a skill that's going to help you for your entire life." And of course, I just, all right, sir, whatever. But I've always gotten confident in those. So I think the earliest one, though, fourth grade, with Miss Fulford.
You know what, though? I've got to ask this question, and we're going to wrap up, but I've got to ask this question. And Kathleen wanted me to post this. So I just wanted to say she loved all these stories about the teachers. So how do we get then? So I've got two men, Black men, to love writing and reading. Pick one or go for both. I'm just very curious. What do you think? How do we do this? We're finding that a lot of people aren't reading. Our young men aren't reading, but also that our young Black men are not going to college. Have you guys seen the stats on that? They're not attending college. They're either wanting to go into a trade or they're just bypassing college altogether. And I have a 19-year-old. I'm living this. I understand the struggles, but from two men who've loved to write all their lives since they were little, young men, how do we move this ahead?
I would say that for young Black men, they really need to see other Black men doing as examples. And that there's just something different there when they can see that real life example of a mentor, of a coach, an uncle, father, ideally. But if absent that father, it takes a village. And there was a journalist on the news station here in Houston who moved to LA and sadly passed away. His name was Chauncey Glover. And he had formed this organization where he was really bringing in young teens and showing them every avenue of excellence, what it takes to get an education, how to get into college, how to interview, how to dress, how to communicate effectively, as Christopher was saying, written, verbal. And he had this organization that was really making an impact. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If we can get more of that in some capacity, whether it's even going, into high schools or whatever, volunteering your time, any way you can to reach them, I think that can make a big difference. Because you're right, the interest is not there. When I go to alumni events or things like that, I see the ratios and I'm like, where are the young brothers at? Mm-hmm. So it's very obvious.
It is. I love your answer. We do. And I think I remember Chauncey. I remember hearing about him. This is, we definitely got to organize around it. We need to make sure that our young people are reading and writing because we know what social media is doing to writing. Everybody's trying to write abbreviating what they're writing more than writing. And so that's a challenge. But Christopher, what do you think? How do we move the needle on this issue?
I'm not really sure, Michelle, because I come from a family of readers. My mother was always reading. My brothers and sisters always read. And what are you reading right now? What's the last thing you read? And I come from a family of educators on my aunts or uncles or teachers or principals and stuff. So we were always reading. And I think maybe just maybe the right book. I know I've always read, but I know there are a few people who talk about how they got into reading because they read the right book. And the thing about that is that, as we all know, there got two types of books for readers and books for people who are willing to read. And so you got to figure out which one. So you guys are laughing, you know what I'm talking about. Is like you got to figure out maybe which one appeals to them the most, and you just never know. I know one guy got his son to read is that he saw this movie, and I forget which one it was, and he just told him offhand, it's based on a book, right? And his son was like, really? He said, yeah. And then he said, well, here's the book. And after that, he decided he read that book, and he read the rest of the books in the series, and he got into writing that way. But I really think you have to catch him young, to where it's like part to see the value of reading, the value of having all this diverse thought thrown at you. Like me, similar to you, Michelle, I was in the South in the projects, and a lot of people would think it was limited access to stuff. But then when I got older, I would meet people. They were surprised I was from the projects. I said, no, yeah, I grew up in the projects. And they said, well, you don't talk or act or you know stuff that I would assume you weren't from the projects but books allowed me to have access to the entire world. I could read it. If I was interested in something, I could read about it. And Monday, I didn't know anything. And by Friday, I was an expert on it, and knew a whole bunch of different things and a whole bunch of different schools of thought, and I was my mother and father got divorced. I was 2. So I was raised by women, my sisters and my mom and my aunts and stuff. So I was also access to a lot of books they were reading, giving me a different perspective on things. I said, oh, I never would have thought about it like that. And had I not read and hearing the inner workings of a woman's mind on that particular subject, that particular story, I never would have thought about it like that. And I said, man, that's so I think if they get something that is about something they like, like you have these kids who like rap music, they could read On the Come Up by, I guess, and that's about a young girl trying to make her way through, become a rapper in rap music. And so she's dealing with a myriad of things. She's dealing with being a girl in a male-dominated arena, also stuff, the family dynamic. And I think that the universality of story. Oh, you're going through that too? Or she went through that too? Oh, I went through that. How are they dealing with this? And I think that, most importantly, I think you got to catch them young and just keep them reading. Keep them reading. I know my house is, what are you reading? What are you reading? What's that about? What's that about? Who wrote that? And that was a common thing all the time. And there was such eclectic reading taste in the house, and so just getting involved in a lot of different things. So yeah, catch them young.
I love that. I was like that too. I had my teacher said you should, a good writer reads, and you should have a book in every room. And so I would have books in every room. You don't imagine. I'm in the project, so we got little rooms, but you have books everywhere. And I would sit on the porch, and I would just read and read. And I got so fascinated with the Holocaust. I would read every book about the Holocaust. My mother would sit there with me and talk to me and ask me if everything's okay, if it's too dark, can I handle it? But I was just fascinated with stories about people who live lives that are so different than mine. And I would lose myself in those books. And I don't read as much. I do a little bit more of audio books, but I don't have a lot of time now to read like I used to. But growing up, if it was a Richard Wright book, Dick Gregory, oh my goodness, Maya Angelou, I was all over it. I read all the classics. I don't really read a lot of contemporary writers, and I'm trying to get more into that. But that was always my thing. So guys, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. Congratulations again. I just want to wrap up with you giving a few words of advice to our writers, for those out there who are looking to write. And then we're going to wrap up this session, but I ask everyone to stay with us. We should be having one more interview with our first place winner of the poetry competition, poetry category, Lou Bell. She would be with us in about 6 minutes. So that'll be our final one. We've had 9 of you now on here. All 9 have been interviewed. I'm so excited about that. That is a big thing for me. And so I just wanted to, once again, thank you, congratulate you, and allow you to wrap up by giving some words of encouragement to our writers out there that are listening. We'll start with you, Christopher.
I would say just continue writing, reading, observe, look and see what other people are doing, steal, borrow, whatever you can to improve your process, because that's all part of the process. And just don't get discouraged. Just keep doing it.
Keep doing it. That's right. Gregory?
I love that, Christopher, and I would echo that. find your own voice while at the same time really hone in on the craft elements of it, right? You can have great ideas, but if you don't understand the mechanics of writing, you might just be tripping yourself up. So really find, resources, books, classes, anything you can do to really hone in on the craft of writing.
And where can they find your work at, both of you? You both published or about to publish. So I know you haven't published, but are you writing on any platforms or anything?
A lot of my writings on writing.com. I post a lot
Okay.
of stuff there, and mostly about those stories. That's most. If you want to read my writing and learn like how I do what I do, then writing.com.
Writing.com. I haven't heard of that one. So great. Thank you. And Gregory?
I have not put any of my writing out there, but if you want to just kind of follow the theme of what I'm about, definitely my Instagram, I would say it's at thenewt45. That's my hook. So you can find me on Instagram. A lot of stuff there, but hopefully soon to be published.
And congratulations on that. I think you did mention you were going to go, you're looking for a traditional publisher. So hopefully everything goes well. I look forward to reading your work, both of you. And again, thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, everybody, we are up for our last interview for the 2025 Chapter 1 Writing Competition. The last winner we have is Lou Bell she is from here in Louisiana. I'm in New Orleans. No, actually, I think Lou Bell is from Mississippi. And I'm really excited to meet with her. And so we will be getting to that interview very shortly. So we're going to shut down for a little bit, maybe play our promo for our Black Ink Book Festival that's coming up here in New Orleans on June 20th. We have opened applications. So if you are a writer out there and you want to exhibit your work at the Black Ink Book Festival, it's our year 4. It's a dynamic event. This year we had 75 authors. Last year we had 95 authors. Hopefully in 2026, we're looking for 100 authors to be here in New Orleans. Whole weekend, Juneteenth weekend, is going to be dynamic. Really looking forward to that event. And so we just want to make sure everyone knows all about it. You can find it on Eventbrite, or you can also go to blackwritersworkspace.com events, and you can figure out from there, you'll find out exactly how to register for this particular event. So we are holding on for Ms. Lou Bell, who will be with us shortly. And we're going to put everybody on hold. So you're going to take a break, get you something to drink, and we'll be right back. Okay, everyone, this is our final interview for our 2025 Chapter 1 Writing Competition. It is the first place winner in our poetry category, Miss Lou Bell from Mississippi. Lou is only 23 years old, and she may be our youngest winner. So really excited to have her here and excited to learn about her process of writing poetry. And I don't know, maybe we can talk her into reading something. I'm not sure if she's listening. Maybe she'll do that for us. But this is so dynamic to have her here. Chapter 1 Writing Competition, you are required to submit at least 10 pages of your nonfiction or fiction writing, or up to between 5 to 7 poems. So she had to submit a collection of poems in order to compete, and she actually took the top spot. So I'm really excited to have her. So let's bring her on the screen. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us and for submitting. I have a story to tell about Miss Lou Bell, but I'm going to tell you, I've met her before I knew that she had entered the competition at all. I met her here in New Orleans, and I was, and she had told me, she said, yeah, I entered a competition and that you were doing. And I was like, really? I said, well, I don't judge, so I have to, wait and see. And when I realized that she took home that top prize, I was just blown away to know her. And I have only heard one of her poems that she actually read for us at an event. And I was just so excited to have her be a part of this. So congratulations. And I am just excited to be with you. This is our last interview. We've interviewed all 8 of our winners. And so it's so exciting to have you here. So tell us about yourself and tell us about your submission.
Well, my name is Jeree Holmes, pen name Lou Bell. I've been writing since I was a child, and I didn't really realize that I had a talent for it until maybe like 5th grade or so. When I shared one of my writings with one of my teachers, and he shared it with another teacher, and they both agreed that I was talented. And so from then on, I just kept writing, and there are so many people that poured into me with my writing. And since meeting you, I had a birthday back in September, so I'm 24.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm 24. I sometimes forget that I'm 24. It's the first time I've been this age. So I'm 24. I am currently a 7th grade science teacher. And I love what I do. I love writing. And my poetry that I submitted is based on some of my experiences with love, some highs and some lows.
I love it. And so you have you're 24 now. You're from Tylertown. Is that right,
That's correct.
Mississippi?
That's correct.
And
Yes.
your goal, you said you want to become a best-selling author and a filmmaker. I love that. And your work, What Do You Want? Blues, You, The Moon and the Sun, and Tell Me Something. What a lot of people don't know is that our poetry competition or our poetry category was only added, I think, 2 years ago. So we were only doing fiction and nonfiction for the first couple of years of the Chapter 1 writing competition, and then we added poetry. And poetry can be very difficult to score. So to be able to rise to the top is exemplary of who you are as a writer, because it is very hard to score. But this year, we actually had more people to submit in the poetry competition than we had in the nonfiction competition. So we're seeing now that more poets are coming out and they want their work to be a part of this competition. And so we're really excited to have that happen and to see that more poets are being a part of this. I mean, talk to me about what it means to you to have won, but also why poetry?
First of all, it means everything. It does. It means everything. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I thank God that He blessed me with this gift and I was able to share it. This is actually the first, well, no, I submitted a poem for a competition back in college. This is the second competition that I've entered and actually won. So it means everything to me. And I feel like it's a sign from God that I'm on the right path. So it was very reassuring. And it's been an amazing experience. I'm trying to get back to one of the writers' workshops. I've been busy every Saturday that y'all have had one, but I'm coming to the next one.
Oh, no problem. Come on. We had one yesterday. Trust me, it's growing, and I'm loving what I'm seeing. And actually, we talked about poetry yesterday. So that was a big part of the conversation. And so why you talk about becoming a best-selling author and a filmmaker, are you thinking to publish your poetry, or are you looking to write in another genre?
I do want to publish my poetry. I'm actually working on a book. It's going to be a collection of poems about love. I don't want to give too much away just yet because it's still in the infant stages. But and I realized I didn't answer the second question that you asked at first. Why poetry? For me, it's an easy way to express things that I feel like I can't say. It's easier for me to write things down most times. So instead of expressing things verbally, I'll write it down in a poetic way. Like for example, in blues, that's one of my favorites. I spoke about how it's difficult for men to express themselves. And sometimes I empathize with that. I don't fully understand what it's like to be a man and for culture to beat them down when they're expressive. So in blues, I showed my support and my love and my appreciation to men. So, and a lot of times that's hard to say. So that's why I write poetry, to express things that is difficult for me to say normally.
And who is your favorite poet?
Ooh. Probably Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
Probably Maya Angelou. Which is crazy. I don't read a whole lot of poetry. I'm more so into novels and things. So if I'm reading poetry, it's something I've written, or I've come across a lot of good poets on Instagram, actually. I don't even remember her name, but she made a poem where she sits down at a coffee shop and it's like she's having a conversation with herself. And I was like, wow. And I went and I lurked on her page, and she's phenomenal. I don't remember her name, but she's probably one of my modern day favorites.
You know what? Let's talk about that, because I feel like a lot of our poets, contemporary or newer poets, just don't get a lot of attention around. And I see that a lot. I mean, of course, we know about Amanda Gorman, but there are so many amazing poets out there who I'll see, like you, on Instagram or on Facebook. They'll post their poems, and I'm like, man, that's powerful. But how do they get out there and get that, build a fan base and be able to be the next Langston Hughes? I'm not certain, because I don't see it as much as I want to see it. I want to see more poets, more African-American poets really get the book deals and get more sponsorship opportunities. And I want to hear their work more. And I don't see that. So I'm happy to see you as a young person who's saying, look, I learned this early, and this is who I am. This is how I communicate. So that's beautiful. I write a little bit of poetry. Normally, I'm writing poetry when I'm in an extreme situation. I write poetry. I remember writing a poem standing in line to vote the first Trump election. And I wrote a poem about We Will Stand. And I was stood in line for like 4 hours. And I just really started digging into all the feelings I had around, just standing there and reading things on social media and how negative people were being, but yet, there were so many people who were willing to stand there for 10 hours if they had to vote. And so I wrote a poem there. I wrote a poem also called The Reset during COVID. But I don't consider myself a poet. I just consider
Right.
myself someone who uses that form, like you said, to communicate when I have no other way. It's like a really great way to do that. So I'm going to ask you a question. And I want the truth. Okay. You ever wrote a poem for a guy, for a boyfriend, and read it to him?
I have. And a lot of people might think it's cringe, but that's a way that like I said, that's a way that I express. And typically in a relationship, I'm with somebody that's into that type of thing too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So the poet finds the poet, huh?
People might think it's cringe, but I don't care. That's who I am.
No, I love it. I love it. I always, I've written a couple of poems too. Like, don't tell my husband, but yeah, I've written a couple of poems in the past when I was young.
Let me hear one.
I don't know. I don't know what I was saying. I don't know if I should have been saying probably what I was saying, but yeah, I love it. That's great. Chris here, who we just interviewed, he said, I've always been envious of poets. They make the intangible tangible and the tangible intangible. And that is so remarkably true. I love poetry. I will sit and read Langston Hughes. And like I said, I'm reading all the classics, but I love the way poetry makes me feel, especially when it's well done. So talk to us about your training in poetry. I mean, I know you've been writing it, but how are you mastering your craft these days?
That's a good question. I heard a while back, I think it was Issa Rae say in an interview that in order to be a great writer, you have to be a great reader. So I've been focusing on reading more. Looking at vocabulary, looking at wordplay, looking at all of those things so that I can kind of change my rhythm, like play with some different things. When I was younger, there was a teacher. My mom is an educator as well. So when I got done with school from the elementary, I would ride the bus over to the high school. And there was this math teacher, her name is Miss Crane. She would give me a word and she would say, write something for me. And I didn't realize how much it took to actually do that. Like I would just say, okay, and I would write something and she would be blown away. So I think getting back to that, because I haven't lately, but getting back to that will also help me better perfect my skill and hone my craft too, which it's difficult for me. Honestly, it's difficult for me to find time to write and to practice on my craft. So it's whenever something pops up in my head, I have to jot it down real quick and I have to come back to it. So yeah, that's what I plan to do, get back to it.
I was just telling the gentleman on the last interview how it was a teacher who heard me reading a poem that I wrote and thought it was great and told me she thought I could write. And she got me into a journalism workshop at the University of Alabama. And I was 15. And awesome. I ended up going to the University of Alabama because of the 2 weeks I spent there because of her. She filled out the paperwork, paid the money for me and everything. I mean, teachers are, I know our teachers now are having a hard time, and I teach school, I understand, but our teachers are having a hard time. But I tell you, the power, the impact of a good teacher, just pricking your imagination and saying, write me something. That is so encouraging. I mean, how many people in a lifetime ask you to write them something? Most people don't. Like, that is like a rare thing. But to have someone who is older than you, who you look up to say, do this for me, and then to tell you that they like it. So for all the teachers out there, thank you. If you are positive, if you are a positive force, if you are telling your kids that they're great and nurturing that greatness and showing them how to maintain it and be great, I thank you. I applaud you, because that is so, so important. I think a lot of us wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for a good teacher.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that is amazing. So anybody out there, if you have any questions, we have Lou Bell on the screen. She is the winner, first place winner in the poetry competition for the 2025 Chapter 1 Writing Competition. And Lou Bell, are you going to read something for us, or are we I'm just asking. I'm wondering before
Yes, I will read something. It may hold on. Let me pull it up. Give me a
Wait a minute. I got a
second.
question. Got a question for you from Gregory. He said, do you
Okay.
find that our poetry is inspired and rooted by joy, or is it there to balance? Is there a balance, or is there a balance of painful truth? Sorry about that. That's a good question.
That is. I think poems are based on what a person is feeling in that moment. If they're feeling joyous, they may write something joyful. If they're feeling down, they may write about the pain that they're feeling. For me, that's what I did. When I was in that relationship and I was happy. You know how it is at the beginning of a relationship, the butterfly, the honeymoon phase. You got butterflies, everything's sweet, everything's fun. So some of my poems, such as Blues, that's how I was feeling at the beginning of the relationship. The Sun and the Moon, that was another depiction of how I felt, those highs in the relationship. So I think it's just based on how a person feels in the moment.
It's a good answer. That's a good answer. I think absolutely. I mean, I've read poetry that is about just joy, and then I've read a great deal of poetry that is there to examine the state for which we are in, especially as African Americans, within a moment. And so, because I read a lot of the classics, I mean, when you read Langston Hughes and he's talking about, growing up in a world filled with discrimination, and learning how to, exist in this world, at the world at that time, you know that it's not a sad poem, but it's a poem of empowerment. It's a poem of also teaching us something, making sure that we don't forget, and that's important. So we're going to let Miss Lou Bell have the whole screen to read us one of her poems. Is this a poem from your submission?
I was actually going to read something new that I wrote recently. This is going to be in my book.
And when is that book coming out?
Hopefully next year. We'll see. We'll
All
go
right.
pray about it. We'll go pray about it.
We want to see it. So we would like to introduce our poet, our first place winner in the Chapter 1 writing competition, Miss Lou Bell.
Thank you. This is a new poem that I wrote called Time. Time passes and the tension grows stronger. You've become my friend, but I'm not sure for how much longer. We enjoy each other's company. We're friends, and that's it. Because we can never become more unless you give your girl the slip. You say it's not that deep. We're not even together. But that's not true, because when she wants to have sex with you, you let her. When she calls, you pick up. When she's down, you lift her up. And if that's not deep, explain to me what is. Because you only share your body and your feelings with someone who cares. Time always reveals if you two are the perfect pair. It also reveals when you're in need, who'll be there. Time is the perfect storyteller. Some end well, some end bad. Some stories end happy, some stories end sad. Some stories are lies, some stories are true. Don't waste my time, because my time won't wait on you. If you want me like you say, you know what to decide. Are you staying or leaving her? Make up your mind. That's one of my.
Wow, you are into the relationship poetry. I love it. Congratulations. That's nice. That's nice. Congratulations, Ms. Lou Bell.
Thank you.
Words of encouragement for our poetry writers out there, specifically. Talk to them about the importance of continuing to do what you do and what they're doing now, and then wrap up by talk to us about your next steps.
To anybody that is writing poetry, just write it, put it out there, make an Instagram page, make the Facebook, make the YouTube, make the video, whatever. Just do it. Stop thinking about it and do it. I'm speaking from experience. I had to stop thinking about it and just do it. For me, next steps are gonna be honing and perfecting my craft and working on my new book called The Love I Once Knew. I'm excited.
Congratulations, Ms. Bell. It's so great to have you. For everyone who's been on the screen tonight and yesterday morning, 9 writers who are winners in the Chapter 1 writing competition, who are perfecting their work, who are publishing books. Don't forget their faces. Don't forget their names. Go out and support them when their books and writings hit whether they're going to be posting on a platform or they're going to be publishing a book. Be sure to please go out there and support each and every one of them. That is so important. So thank you all. Thank you, Miss Bell. Continue to write. I look forward to reading more of your work, and I look forward to seeing you here in New Orleans at our next meetup. Hopefully you can make it out. And thank you for everyone who's been able to chime in and post questions and comments. We do need and continue to ask for your support in everything that we're doing. So be sure to go to directtoauthor.com. You can see a host of books by our Black authors there. You can also upload your book. Be sure to follow us on Black Writers Workspace, and you can join the community at blackwritersworkspace.com. And also join us here in June for the Black Ink Book Festival at City Park. Today, that's Juneteenth weekend. And so we're going to be hosting our 4th, can you believe it, our 4th annual book fair. So I am so excited about that. We'll have music and prizes and free books and reading in the garden because we're at the Botanical Garden. And we're going to be doing the Black Ink Film Festival again as well. So we're going to be highlighting 5 Black filmmakers and get a chance to see their work. So congratulations, everyone. Have a great Sunday. What's left? Yeah, it's early. Have a great Sunday. And please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to share this link on our Facebook. You can find it at author Michelle D. Jackson. And for you, Miss Bell, congratulations again. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Bye-bye.